Hello, and welcome to this Mass Insight webinar about district equity audit opportunities. I'm Dr. Julie Shepard, and I'm joined by my colleague, Francina Victoria. We are excited for this opportunity to share an overview of Mass Insight's equity audits with all of you. During the next 20 minutes, we will share a little bit about our organization, who we are, what we do, and our approach to partnering with schools and districts around the country. Then we will provide our objectives when conducting equity audits, as well as the framework that we use to ground this important work. And finally, we'll present an overview of our four-phase approach to equity audits and the ways that we can customize our approach to meet your district's needs. Mass Insight Education and Research is a nationwide nonprofit committed to pursuing equity in K-12 education. On the map, you can see the various states in which we've had the opportunity to partner with schools, districts, or state departments of education. Though our office is in Boston, our staff live across the country and have vast experience in urban, suburban, and rural settings, and districts in public, private, and charter schools and districts. Under the map is our vision statement, and we work to bring our vision to life by focusing on system transformation and student success, providing diagnostic, planning, and strategic consulting services to support implementation. Our work acknowledges that the current system needs to be reimagined in order to ensure every student can reach their full potential and life's ambitions. Our mission statement in the gray box at the right conveys our belief that every student, particularly those from marginalized populations, should have access to high-quality educational experience that prepares them to achieve their full potential. We believe that increasing equity requires an intentional focus on overcoming the historical legacy of racism, discrimination, marginalization, and underinvestment that disadvantages specific groups of people while advantaging others. Overcoming this history requires a differentiated and tailored support and resources, dismantling inequitable systems and practices, and increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion orientation at the individual and collective levels to mitigate biases and prejudices.
Mass Insight believes that the school is the unit of change and improvement, and our work with schools and districts begins by understanding local strengths, challenges, and opportunities for improvement. Our research-informed theory of action describes in greater detail the various aspects of education systems we believe support the structures, policies, practices, and actions necessary for school leaders and staff in order to develop, implement, and sustain improvement. The various elements of our theory of action coordinate and organize the structures, policies, and practices necessary for school staff to focus on the instructional core, which is the interaction between students, teachers, and the content. We believe that schools can substantially improve the outcomes and success of their students, particularly those who have been systemically marginalized, by eliminating barriers to student learning through a focus on these 7 elements of our theory of action, which are conditions, partnerships, leadership, planning, performance management, collective responsibility, and a focus on instruction. You might notice that our theory of action is school-based and wonder how this translates to a district equity audit. The outer layer of the theory of action, the conditions element, speaks to a school's ability to utilize people, time, money, and programs to address the root cause of low performance and inequitable outcomes. The ability for schools to address systematic barriers is frequently the result of district systems, structures, policies, and practices, which impact how schools function. It is this structure and interactive relationship that we examine during our equity audit process to understand the extent to which districts support schools to address their specific student, staff, and family needs in an inclusive and accessible and equitable way that prioritizes marginalized populations. We see equity as both a collective and individual journey for all stakeholders in the districts. Stakeholders is a term we use to describe district and school staff, students, families, community members, and partners. We applaud districts that recognize and act upon the need to better understand the extent to which their policies, practices, and behaviors are impacting all district stakeholders. Equity audits provide a current picture of how equity is experienced within a district, and yet it is important to keep in mind that achieving greater equity is an ongoing improvement journey that requires the continued engagement of all stakeholders. Our goal is to support districts in understanding what the evidence-based next steps should be in order to create a more equitable, inclusive, and accessible educational and work experience for all stakeholders. The equity audit process is an opportunity to have an external set of eyes utilize the lens that examines the lived realities and experiences of staff, students, and families, and see where there are opportunities to increase access and more inclusive practices, policies, and mindsets, to better understand the benefits of diversity and to further equitable outcomes for all.
There are 9 domains in our equity audit framework. For the sake of time, I'm just going to provide a high-level overview of each. With vision, strategy, and culture, we look for the ways in which a district prioritizes and then reflects a commitment to educational equity and promotes a district-wide culture of inclusivity and the belief that each and every student can learn and succeed. With accountability for equitable student access and outcomes, this focuses on the policies, systems, and practices that enable all students to fully participate in school, programs, and activities that result in high comparable success outcomes. In governance and conditions, we examine how the school board or school committee and central office structures, systems, and practices work together to advance the district towards its mission, as well as the ways in which they reflect the district's commitment to equity. With the focus on culturally and linguistically sustaining the teaching and learning domain, here we examine the extent to which the curriculum, materials, and instructional practices ensure staff's professional growth and development to refine rigorous standards-based instruction that recognizes and embraces students' cultural and linguistic identities and the district's diversity. The student readiness to learn domain is where we seek to understand the extent to which the district and schools create safe, positive, and inclusive learning environments for all students, as well as how students' non-academic needs are proactively addressed so that they can fully engage and succeed academically. The workforce development domain focuses on how the district recruits, cultivates, hires, develops, and retains staff. This includes professional learning opportunities that staff receive to ensure a talented, culturally competent, and diverse workforce. In family and community engagement, we examine the ways in which the district and schools intentionally and authentically communicate with and engage students, families, and community members. The data domain focuses on how the district utilizes disaggregated data to regularly identify and address inequities in the system. And finally, the school management domain focuses on district policies, structures, and systems that enable school leaders to create the conditions in their building around staffing, time, program, and budget to ensure the success of their students.
The objectives for a district equity audit are to understand a district's historical and current context, the DEI-related foundations the district has already established, and stakeholders' perspectives about their lived experiences and realities during interactions with districts and schools. From all data and evidence gathered, we then outline the opportunities the district has to further equity. Our general objectives for an equity audit are to, first, analyze data and gather information about the district's current strengths and areas for growth relative to equitable opportunities and access for all student populations. Second, prompt reflective conversations about the current status of equitable opportunities as compared to its desired state by examining the attitudes, experiences, and beliefs of all key stakeholders through surveys, focus groups, and phone calls. And finally, identify and present opportunities to improve equitable practices through the district by providing recommendations designed to focus attention and resources, people, time, money, programs to fully support the district's diverse students, staff, families, and community. So the typical equity audit takes 6 to 8 months to complete, which is dependent upon a district size and scheduling considerations. For phase 1, we will start the equity audit process with a kickoff meeting so we better understand the district's landscape, current reality, and what the expectations are for the use of the equity audit. Following that, we will then tailor our process and tools to ensure the district's expectations will be met. We prioritize the local context and take a strengths-based approach to our work, as evidenced by a report naming the foundational strengths a district already has in place or has invested in to support greater equity. Phase 2. The second phase consists of a deep data dive to understand district, school, and community information and data. We comb through publicly available quantitative and qualitative data, such as policies and documents. We also ask the district to provide us with internal data that is not publicly available to increase our awareness and understanding of district and school conditions. We spend significant time learning all we can about the district and schools to understand the local context and lived realities of stakeholders. The third phase, following the collection of data and artifacts, is the engagement of district stakeholders. As mentioned earlier, stakeholders range from students to partner organizations. We aim to strengthen the voices of all those who identify as being part of a marginalized group. When we reference marginalized populations, we are referring to groups that experience discrimination and exclusion as a result of current and/or historical, social, political, economic power dynamics or oppression from a dominant group. Marginalized populations may include, but are not limited to, race, ethnicity, linguistic, social class, gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, cultural, or ability group. During this phase, we start by distributing surveys to stakeholders to obtain written feedback and provide an opportunity for those who are not able to participate in our focus groups and/or may just have additional comments to share. Those surveys help us understand the landscape of the district from the perspectives of stakeholders and their lived experiences. In addition to the surveys are a series of focus groups and interviews. We keep the needs of stakeholders in mind and have flexibility in the format and accommodations, language, and location where interviews and focus groups are taking place. For instance, making phone calls to family members has proven to be successful in engaging families and allowing them to have more flexibility in how they participate in the equity process. Holding student focus groups during the day enables students to participate in a structured setting and encourages attendance, while hosting virtual focus groups for school staff limits the need to travel across the district and results in higher participation. Lastly, we use phase 4 to synthesize all of the information gathered through the project and create a report to share with the district contacts. Our report will include findings from the process, priorities and recommendations to support the implementation of equitable practices at all levels. We'll work with the district team and have feedback rounds based on the findings prior to a school board presentation to unpack equity audit results.
Throughout our process, we not only prioritize a customized approach to recognize each district's individual strengths and opportunities for growth, but we also customize the process to set the district up for success once the equity audit is complete. Some ways that this customization has looked with other districts are through vision setting processes, classroom observations, curriculum or instructional resource reviews, stakeholder communication about the equity audit findings, strategic consulting or leadership capacity building, and district strategic planning. This concludes our informational overview of Mass Insight's equity audits. Thank you so much for listening. and to learn more about our process. If you would like to schedule a time to talk with one of our team members, please reach out to us at equity@massinsight.org. Thank you all so much.